While most of the country was set to celebrate 4th of July weekend, Oklahoma State country got to celebrate a little bit extra and pop off some bigger fireworks with a legacy that all but completes the in-state takeover and a Kansas State long-time commitment flip as well.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we get to jump right into this conversation of the recruiting variety and how we could potentially lock down the state of Oklahoma in recruiting. You had to have a lot of things going your way, and the last one, or at least one of the last pieces, seems to be Braeden Presley, a.k.a. BP3, has joined the family legacy as a commit at Oklahoma State. Obviously, his brother Brennan is the all-time receptions leader in Oklahoma State history. The middle brother, Braylon, did come to Oklahoma State. There was a discrepancy on whether he should play running back, wide receiver, so he ended up going down the road to Tulsa. Now we land Braeden Presley, the biggest of the brothers. Both Braylon and Brennan are in the 5'8", 5'9" variety. Braeden Presley, however, is coming in at 6'2", 190 pounds. He can play corner. He can play safety. He can play wide receiver. He could be a return specialist. He's basically a jack of all trades, coming in with the ability to master essentially a bunch of them. It appears as though that our direction with him is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. However, it does not escape the fact that he's very productive on the offensive side of the ball as well. He has 55 yards passing to go alongside almost 300 yards rushing, 389 yards receiving, all-purpose yards. He has 1,154 all-purpose yards, and then even on the defensive side of the ball, he naturally has to kick in with 42 tackles combined. And he's even in on the fumble return, fumble recovery. He has a fumble forced and a fumble recovery for a touchdown for 100 yards. He also has 4 interceptions. So this is a jack of all trades that could come to Oklahoma State and find his way into mastering a couple of different avenues. On top of mastering this recruiting cycle, we were able to go get Kansas State longtime commit since October, Brandon Ford. 5'11", 170-pound cornerback from Crowley, Fort Worth area native. This is somebody that Oklahoma State seemingly knew we could potentially weasel our way in here. And this is after he committed to Kansas State on top of offers from Arizona, Arizona State, Baylor, Texas Tech. A lot of your heavy hitters that are in the Big 12, and we all know this is a pretty crazy conference, not only on the field, but when it comes to recruiting as well. So when you can get somebody that's been committed to a school like Kansas State for quite some time, not a place that traditionally loses a lot of guys, it accentuates to me what this staff is able to do in recruiting. Whenever you don't land a Ben Duncombe, or maybe you can't get a Nehemiah Cologne, and then you find out you get the number one player in Arkansas, and Danny Bill, who's also all number one defensive lineman in Arkansas, and then you get the number one Oklahoma player that is also a defensive lineman in Taj Overton. That kind of takes away from some of the necessity of landing a bit Duncombe or even to some degree a Nehemiah Cologne. Hats off to Nehemiah making the decision to go to BYU. But when you're able to get the top guys at your list, it all comes down to numbers. Numerically speaking, you want to have a decent number of recruits from the high school ranks, but also leave yourself a lot of room to go get some of the portal guys, right? So it's a balancing act. And just like we discussed, if you lose a Victor Lincoln, but then you're able to go get somebody like a Braeden Presley, that means you definitely won out in that battle. And we're able to see that here once again. You know, Ford comes in with 68 tackles in this last couple seasons. He also comes in with 10 interceptions and double-digit pass breakups. He's able to see the field from a multitude of ways. He can get on the special teams, especially in college. That might be somewhere where he's able to cut his teeth pretty early. We've discussed how speed was a massive component for the recruiting that this staff is bringing in now. Brandon Ford fits into that speed variety as well. Then you have Braeden Presley, right? This is almost a completion of locking down the in-state guys. We have Jalen Battle making his decision. It would be nice to see that Edmond-Santa Fe pipeline continue to grow. Or you go back to the Calvin Bunges and Calvin Bundage, Trace Ford, Talon Shetron, Tavery Shetron, all of these from the Edmond-Santa Fe pipelines kind of gotten a little lessened over the years. You still might have the capability of Landon Edwards, who decommitted from KU recently. So if you could get him to decommit from KU to come to Oklahoma State after you just were able to get Brandon Ford to decommit from Kansas State to come to Oklahoma State, it clearly shows that this staff has hidden talents. Nobody could have saw that Taj Overton was going to pick Oklahoma State, right? He was an OU lean for a very long time. And then when you start seeing the offers come in from the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Oregons and the Auburns of the world, on top of being number one recruit in the state of Oklahoma and having an OU offer, nobody could have foreseen that we were going to land that guy, especially at the end of last season, before Mike Gundy brought in Todd Grantham and Cap Deedy and Jules Montinar and Ryan McNamara and Ryan Osborne and Doug Meacham and Theron H. Before Mike Gundy was able to bring all of these individuals in, nobody could have foreseen that we were going to be able to land Taj Overton. Nobody would have ever envisioned that we were going to be in the running to land a Danny Beal III. I think even at that point in time, Katie Batman Jones was a hardcore lean that away. And this is why getting Braeden Presley is so massively important. They miss on Katie Batman Jones, right? The common consensus seemed to be, well, you know, his dad Kiwan's a legend here, so naturally he's going to come here. But if he doesn't come here, that's because we just don't have the ability to offer him, you know, a much playing time or enough playing time. At least that was the excuse being handed down. Then when you bring up Trey McLaughlin, number one linebacker in the state of Oklahoma from Bixby, he decides to come to Oklahoma State. Once again, it's a whole bunch of this, well, he probably wasn't going to play at OU, and we're pretty known for our linebackers, so he was going to sit on the bench. And in today's age, you can't really bring guys in to sit on the bench. Okay, fine. They weren't going to say the same thing about Taj Overton, regardless of what they may or may not have said about Carter Langendorfer, no matter what they may or may not have said about Aiden Martin. They were trying to tell the world that they didn't need Katie Batman Jones, that they weren't going to be able to utilize Trey McLaughlin. And now you talk about Taj Overton, and there's a bunch of this copium being passed around Norman once again. Not necessarily the, oh, well, he wasn't going to play here, but it was more of, well, Oklahoma State's paying more money, which is kind of, you know, a breath of fresh air. We'll talk about at a later episode, but the NIL clearly has the capability to at least be in the conversational piece of the monetary situation. Is Oklahoma State paying as much as Georgia or OU? Probably not. But we're obviously very, very, very well in the thick of things. And then, you know, the Danny Beal situation, going into SEC country and getting the number one player out of an SEC country participant's backyard, that's saying something. And now you get Braeden Presley. There was a full court press by OU to get Braeden Presley. They didn't get Katie Batman Jones. They weren't able to get Trey. They maybe didn't want, you know, Langendorfer. And then Braeden Presley's available. They were not going to let Oklahoma State get all of the top guys. So the full court press was on for Braeden Presley. And there was a lot in the OU community that felt like for a long time that he was going to end up choosing OU. And then he comes down to his decision, lays out two hats. There was a little bit of a nerve-wracking moment, I'm sure, for all of the Cowboy faithful. And most importantly, he discussed how the conversations he had with Katie Batman Jones and Taj Overton and Carter Langendorfer and Trey McLaughlin and even had Aiden Martin's involvement in all of this was imperative to the recruiting process. Without Katie and Taj and Trey and Carter and Aiden, then likely we may be having a different conversation about Braeden Presley choosing to go to OU. And if Taj Overton would have gone to OU, obviously that would potentially solidify Braeden Presley going to OU and changing family legacy decision-making that goes on. Clearly, Oklahoma State was the right place. It's the right fit. BP3 is going to get taken care of here. And a KState flip that they definitely didn't see coming. A very big deal. So now you have somebody who is the size of a truck who can almost run like a Ferrari to go alongside Brandon Ford coming over for Kansas State. Oklahoma State recruiting staff is not done. They have a ways to go. And clearly, with like the emergence of Brandon Ford choosing Oklahoma State, it came out of nowhere. So there may be some topical conversations about, you know, individuals that are warm about Oklahoma State, But clearly, there's other conversations happening that nobody has any clue are taking place, and our staff is doing a very, very good job of not only identifying this talent, but we're able to swoop in and steal some dudes with some viable SEC and NFL pedigree programs that we're putting on display. Speaking of putting things on display, Game Time Tickets is the best in the ticketing industry for all of your ticketing needs. And you all know we're going to need tickets for this upcoming football season because, a lot of us have probably made last-minute decisions about, well, you know what, I am going to go to this game after all. And if you're just showing up to the ball game to tailgate or hang out with friends or family, the last-minute nature means Game Time is what's best for you. If you're suddenly realizing that you want to be in the stands, this is exactly where Game Time comes into play. It's the easiest way for you to grab last-minute tickets without all of the unnecessary stress. With the money that you're going to save on your tickets, you can then splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes all of this possible because Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, tip-off, kickoff, whatever it is. The last-minute incredible deals are the best for you with the best views from the seats, panoramic in the app before you purchase. On top of the lowest price guarantee, it means that you can take all of the worry out of you buying tickets. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On Major League Baseball. Make it easy for you to browse the app and find the exciting upcoming MLB games. Game Time has last-minute tickets and zone deals for the biggest savings, like 10% off exclusive deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. Take the guesswork out of you buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create that account and redeem that code, all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. It is last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Now we get to jump into the expectations conversation in regards to Oklahoma State. And you all know, shout out to the regulars, a.k.a. regulators out here. There have been instances where I've been very critical of Mike Gundy, and there's others that have been as well. The biggest gripe I've always had is the inability at times on massive capitalization moments. Everything that Boone Pickens has provided for Mike Gundy, for all of us in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and all of us that have grown up Oklahoma State fans or become new Oklahoma State fans, the facilities from the old erector set, steel, Lewis Field days to what we have now after the 2011 run, winning a Big 12 title, beating Andrew Luck in Stanford in the Fiesta Bowl, getting robbed out of playing for a national title, followed that up with a number 29 ranked recruiting class, number 24 ranked recruiting class, that 2010, 2011, 2012 phase of Oklahoma State football under Mike Gundy, very early on, could have been a revolutionizing moment for Oklahoma State. That could have put us in a stratosphere that we'd never been in before. Perennial top 25 recruiting classes, perennial Big 12 favorites to compete for championships on a year-to-year basis. All of that could have been set up. And then you have some years where maybe it didn't take place. And there were some moments where Mike Gundy was priding himself on not having to utilize the entire athletic recruiting budget, but because, sometimes he felt like he could get the players that he identified that he wanted strategically without spending the other $500,000, whatever the case was. Some of that was an unnecessary expense, right? Mike Holder would say, I'm not giving you this recruiting money to tell me you don't need it. I'm giving it to you to spend it, so spend it. Moments like that, just failure of capitalization. We go back to the OU. It's not the record against OU. It's the fact that 7 of those were for like pseudo Big 12 title games or the right to play in a Big 12 title game. Those sting a little bit more. And part of that was just simply not capitalizing on maybe moments. Maybe we punted a little bit too often. Maybe we didn't kick field goals when we should have, or maybe we should have gone on a few more fourth downs. Some of those just seemed like little moments. Mike Gundy was phenomenal as a culture builder, phenomenal as a program builder, but maybe there were some moments here and there that we could have capitalized. All of that is coming around to this season. Mike Gundy had his worst year ever as a Cowboy football coach. The last time we had an 0-for season in conference was 1994 before Mike Gundy was the head coach. But even if you look back to Mike Gundy's first year ever, we were 4-7. that was comparable to this previous season. But the expectations in Oklahoma State being so low just do not make sense historically. Mike Gundy had that terrible year his first year, and then he went 7-6, 7-6, 9-4, 9-4, 11-2, 12-1, 8-5, 10-3, 7-6, 10-3, 10-3, 10-3, 7-6, 8-5, 8-3, 12-2, 7-6, 10-4, then 3-9. It just baffles me, who's had moments like some of the capitalization things, or maybe the Spencer Sanders saga in 2022, or hanging on to Dunn and Dickey too long. And there's just moments. But this feels like a capitalization moment once again for Mike Gundy. And it really feels like he's going to take advantage of it. It really feels like when everyone's doubting Mike Gundy, and he goes out and makes an unprecedented move and firing all of the coaches, and then you bring in not only SEC, NFL guys, but guys to be the head coach of the defense and pay him accordingly, and allow him to hire his own guys and recruit his own guys and recruit his own way and do his own thing and install his own system and operate this thing like the NFL, rookie mini camp, OTAs, roster cuts, distribute the NIL like it's going to be some semblance of an NFL style of contract, to be able to explain to the guys, this is how you manage your money. This is how you would manage your money if you were a 5th-round draft pick, and this is comparable. All of those things that we're doing, we're operating more like an NFL clubhouse. This was all a necessity, and this was a necessity that came after a 3-win season. For Mike Gundy to make these level of moves, to me, it does show that he understands that some things had to change. Some things had to change pretty drastically. Yet, this was inspired by a Sports Illustrated article, like an Oklahoma State Sports Illustrated article over the weekend, about how we should not have expectations after a 3-win season, more or less. And I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. Failure of capitalization has been the only disgruntlement I've had for the most part with Mike Gundy. But it feels like this is that year where all the chips are down, where all the prognostications and the experts and the pundits are saying that Oklahoma State's going to have another 3 to 4 win season. It just seems crazy to me, because they're going to give Utah and Kyle Whittingham some of that extra credit of, well, it's Kyle Whittingham, it's Utah. Right? They don't ever stay down for long, but they are not giving the same grace to Mike Gundy. And then now to see some, representatives of the orange and black variety also saying that maybe we should lessen our expectations, I don't agree with that. I think that Mike Gundy set the expectations, and this is a massive season for him. If we talk about the moments where maybe we didn't capitalize, this could be the ultimate Mike Gundy season. It feels like it definitely could be. The system operating differently with all of the new coaches, the way that we're recruiting, the way that we're navigating NIL, the way that we're winning in the transfer portal, the way we're able to, construct the roster with some old school dudes, with some old school coaches, mixed in with a lot of this new age NIL era of athlete, has me pretty excited. And it leads me to believe that we should not change expectations. Matter of fact, this should be a season where we reset them. And if you go over the last 20 years, the baseline expectation is 7 wins. I think that should not be different this season. Just because we had a 3-win season, it is still Mike Gundy. So even when we've had moments, or I've had moments where I didn't agree with what Mike Gundy did that season, typically that season was still at minimum a 7-6 season. So the basement in Stillwater should always and forever be 7 wins. The expectation of 8 to 9 probably should be right where the bar is adequately setting. But I don't agree with this notion that because we had a 3-win season and because there's new coaches and because there's roster turnover, that means we should be okay or expect less than 7 wins. I mean, guys, we have 7 home games for starters. On top of the 7 home games, we avoid the Arizona States, we avoid the BYUs, we avoid the TCUs. And even though West Virginia is by and large, viewed below Oklahoma State this season, that's still a problematic opponent. almost everybody in the conference, to some degree, is a problematic opponent. Everybody in this conference can jump up and get you. So from that aspect, I do see that there's potential turmoil. But the expectations are the expectations. And I don't think that we should change the expectations because of outside pressure on Oklahoma State not being very good this season, but especially internally as a fan base. This is not a year, in my opinion, to think it's okay if we only win 6. The standard is the standard. And if you don't have standards, then you don't have a lot for accomplishment. We have a lot to accomplish because the standards have been set by Mike Gundy over the last 20 years that anything below 7 wins is not acceptable. So just because the outside punditry, it may be lessening the standards at the moment, I don't think we should as a fan base. This should be a year that we have high expectations, and the expectations should once again be 7 wins bare minimum. And if that's the acceptable bare minimum for football, we should perhaps change what our bare minimum expectation is for Cowgirl basketball. Jacie Hoyt knows what she's doing. She knows what she's about, and she knows when she identifies a specific kind of talent, she's going to pull the trigger. And she has pulled the trigger with Addisyn Bollinger, the West Texas sharpshooter, right out of the Southwest Lubbock, Texas area, Friendship High School to be exact. Addisyn Bollinger is a 5'11" guard that is committed to Oklahoma State after several suitors, including some Big 12 foes. But Arkansas, Wichita State, Grand Canyon, Fort Atlantic, Tulsa were some of the programs recently to be all over her. She can put up points quickly, and that is clearly the identification of talent that we're looking for here. Pistols Firing did an article that I implore you guys to go check out, kind of in regards to how Jacie Hoyt's been very selective, right? She doesn't go get a bunch of underclassmen, but when she does, she's been pretty good at about identifying the right talent. Staley Hurd was a freshman that came in, was an absolute star, ended up being an All-American and a first team All Big 12 selection. Jaden Wooten comes in. She's another All Big 12 freshman selection, averaging almost 7 points, almost 3 rebounds, almost 4 assists a game in her first year college basketball. And then last year we signed Lena Girardi, just outside top 50 best players in the country, averaging over 30 points a game, almost 13 rebounds a game. The daughter of Yankee great Joe Girardi. When Jacie Hoyt identifies a freshman, she knows what she's looking for. Bollinger is no different. She can absolutely fill it up. She set a school record at Friendship this previous season for most points with 596. Most three-pointers made in a season, which was 83. Most field goals in a season, 223. And there was a game this previous season where she dropped 9 3-pointers, also a school record, for a total of 33 points. When Jacie Hoyt identifies something, then I think we should all be able to kind of sit back and relax with what she's bringing in. The identification of what the issue was this last season has been very much fixed. Jacie Hoyt's been very phenomenal about getting international players and grabbing some key pieces in the portal and bringing back some Oklahoma players that left the state at one point in time to go to places like North Texas or UTSA or whatever the case may be. When she identifies a freshman, so far, they've been freshmen that could come in and contribute immediately, provide depth, and provide a missing piece. The missing piece this previous season was rebounding. That was obviously visible in the NCAA tournament game. It was visible a little bit as well in the Big 12 tournament. And there was portions of the season, even with Tina Magassa, who was one of the best in the country, went number 4 in the country when it came to block shots. She was a disruptive force down low. But when it came to rebounds, if she wasn't in the game, we struggled. And Prezek Vareba is back. She's been working on her offensive game, but that's not necessarily her specialty. Thankfully, Jacie Hoyt identified people in the transfer portal that we could go get that were specialists when it comes to defensive rebounding or just shot blocking capabilities or being a paint disruptor once again. We've also got some components with some scoring. You've got, obviously, Macy Heward coming back. Jaden's going to have a big season. Staley could have a big season. Praise is going to be instrumental to the success that we're looking at. The pieces that we were able to grab in the portal, accentuated by what Lena Girardi could bring in. This is, once again, a special group. And the expectations that we just discussed in Cowboy football. Before Mike Gundy, the expectations were like, 4 or 5 wins is an okay-ish season. Cowgirl basketball before Jacie Hoyt, yes, we had some moments where we were good. We had some, Butke-style seasons where we had some individual players that were drafted very high. Andrea Riley, obviously, is one of the best players in the history of Oklahoma State to ride us some of these big moments. But now Jacie Hoyt's kind of rechanging the expectation, just like Mike Gundy did. When he took over a 4-win season, it wasn't fun, but it was like, okay, right, it is what it is. Now it can't happen. Now when you have a 3-4-win season, you have to fire 99% of your coaching staff because the expectation wasn't met. So is the expectation going to now continuously be, see, words are still hard for me, Jacie Hoyt, the expectation to compete for Big 12 tournament championships? How often? Every other year? Every couple of years? How long do we hold on to Jacie Hoyt? Can we continuously expect Jacie Hoyt to recruit at a high clip and to also bring in top 10, top 15 portal classes on a continuous basis? At certain points in your program history, the expectations do change. Mike Gundy changed them for football, and now it appears as though Jacie Hoyt is changing them for basketball. We should be able to compete for a Big 12 tournament championship. We should be able to make a little bit of a run in the NCAA tournament. We should be able to have success in rebounding. We should be able to be much better as a shooting team. We should have more depth, which means the expectations should continuously evolve. And the next round of evolution is winning a Big 12 championship in basketball and also making a little bit of a deeper run in March Madness. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor. Hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike it if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast, people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do. So go do what you do. Hit some stars. Leave some reviews. All right, y'all. Later, taters.